Hi everyone, my name is Martha. I'm a sexologist from Eros Coaching, and I'm the initiator of Clean and Clear. It's a 30-day campaign on letting go of negative emotions so that we can let in more pleasure into our lives. And I have with me Veronica Monet, the beautiful Veronica Monet, as you can see. And let me introduce her before I ask her a few questions. So she's an outspoken advocate for sexual self-determination and the author of a sex manual. And Veronica Monet has been a guest of many major media such as CNN, Fox News, and the New York Times. Her coaching clients benefit from a potent combination of her training as a certified sexologist and anger specialist, as well as her decades of personal recovery from codependency, anger issues, sexual abuse, and domestic violence. She brings with her deep empathy and intuition in her relationship coaching. And she has this formula called the Exquisite Partnership Formula, which offers simple step-by-step process for transforming conflicts into connection and alienation into intimacy. And her website is theshamefreezone.com. That's theshamefreezone.com. So welcome to this little interview, Veronica.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, Martha. I always enjoy talking with you. And I think this is a particularly important topic that you brought to the fore because I think since the United States election, the entire planet is kind of going through an upheaval. And it's not just the U.S. election. There's been elections in Europe that are also kind of rocking the world. So there's just a lot of trends out there that feel really polarized, and I think it's created an activation of a certain amount of post-traumatic stress disorder in a lot of people. And we used to think that you only had post-traumatic stress disorder if you'd actually suffered a car wreck, or you were a veteran of war, or maybe a rape survivor. But in fact, now science is finding that PTSD travels through our DNA. So if you have forebears who lived through the Holocaust or were veterans of war, it's probably in your DNA. So I just kind of go on the premise that we're all trying to process a certain amount of trauma. Mm-hmm. And when a particularly traumatic historical event or series of historical events occurs, it just exacerbates that and creates kind of a fight or flight state for a lot of us, where we're feeling anxious, and we may have a tendency to indulge in avoidance patterns or addictions, which tend to be the two go-tos that a lot of people do when they're trying to cope. So anyway, I really just want to bow to you for bringing this topic up so that we can find some creative, positive, healthy ways of moving through the negative and unpleasant emotions. I don't even like the word negative because I think it's important that we process this stuff, but certainly unpleasant.
Yeah. Because what the world perceives as negative is sometimes our blessing and our biggest teacher and learning. So you're right. I mean, if we can use another more positive word for that, because we like to think of the world and everything that we go through as black and white. I'm really drawn to your bio, where you say you're an anger specialist. So tell us more about your work specifically with anger.
Well, I am actually somebody who was very, very angry. I grew up in a dysfunctional home. My father molested my sister and I, and he beat my mother. So I grew up in a home where there was sexual abuse and domestic violence, and it was not as bad as some situations, certainly a lot better than others. But I think the part of the family history that was probably the most oppressive was actually the fact that we belonged to a religious cult, and we were completely cut off from society. So in a lot of ways, I actually felt imprisoned, and I didn't just feel imprisoned, I kind of was. Because years later, I talked to somebody, well, I'm going to be quite honest, my sister, And she spent some time in prison and told me it was better. So it was a pretty horrible childhood. And coming out of that, I was just so angry, so angry. And I got clean and sober at the age of 25. And, you know, because coming from a dysfunctional background like that, I went straight to addiction. That was my way of coping. I really didn't have the luxury of a lot of denial. And I mean, I have my denials even to this day, but I just have always been somebody who remembers stuff, and the rest of the family might forget and have the convenience of that particular avoidance tactic, but it wasn't available to me. So I had to drink to forget. I had to do drugs to forget. And when I got sober in 1985 at the age of 25, I realized I was just full of rage. And my sponsor told me, she says, you're going to go work out at the gym 3 days a week or else, because you're just so angry, nobody can cope with you. So I did. That's what I did. I worked out, I exercised, and I highly recommend that as kind of like a first step, is to work out your body, actually get that stuff out of you. But that's not enough. And then I started doing body work. I mean, actually seeking the services of body workers. I did Reiki and acupuncture and deep tissue massage. A lot of trauma and anger is in our tissues as well. See, if you kind of telling my story, it starts to pull the layers off, and it's a long process, or it is when you're still trying to figure out what it is you're doing. And I would say in the 80s, there were probably less help than there is now. And one of the real advantages of talking to somebody who's actually lived it is maybe you don't have to take as long to figure out the things that are going to work for you. Eventually, after extended sobriety, after doing all kinds of therapy, after finding ways to extirpate my rage, I realized I was still angry. Now I wasn't as dysfunctional or acting out as much as I was in the beginning, but it was still there. And when I got married in 1991, my husband and I realized that we had issues. And there were domestic violence issues. And we were both sober, and it was shocking and demoralizing for us to realize that we had this issue, because we kind of thought, well, you take away the alcohol and the drugs and, you know, have a spiritual program and you'll be fine. And that wasn't the case. The fact was, we learned how to handle disagreements, conflict, and anger from our parents. And so when we got married, we ended up marrying each other's parents, and it was horrible. So he went through Men Overcoming Violence program and really took it to heart, really put his heart and soul into that, and transformed himself from a man who was violent to one who wasn't violent. And when he did that, I got to see that it wasn't just him, because the model at the time was kind of like men were perpetrators and women were victims. And I started realizing that, no, I had issues too. And in fact, when he stopped hitting me, I started taking it as permission to get even for the times he'd hit me, and I started hitting him. This is like really extreme forms of anger here. And when my clients come to me for help now, most of them are not dealing with domestic violence, which I'm really grateful that they're not. But my journey around anger is based on things that are really serious. And so I take anger management very serious. And I know where my slippery slopes are. And for me, if I start making excuses to even slam doors or throw something, name call my partner, those are slippery slopes that I can't afford to do. And most of the couples that I work with, what I find is they may never actually get to the point where they would hit each other, but you can really do a lot of damage with your words. So I teach a model that is finds a constructive way to take anger, use it for good. And that may sound kind of antithetical. Most people are really trying to learn how to control their anger. Control doesn't work. That's why they call it anger management. Management is really about learning how to take what I consider a really important emotion. It's actually a gift, if you think about it. Your anger is a gift. It is telling you something really important, but what you choose to do with it can either become a problem or an asset. So if I know that my anger is putting me on alert, that there's something that needs my attention, and usually it's an unmet need or a violated boundary. And here's one of the first things that you have to do in anger management. You have to start caring about yourself. Now that is also counterintuitive, because most people who have acted out their anger in a way that they feel really ashamed of will start attacking themselves with shame and remorse. And they might excuse themselves just so they can live with themselves, and then the behavior is going to repeat itself. Or they'll feel so bad about themselves that they have no investment in doing better the next time. So shame is actually a great way to make sure that you will re-perpetrate, that you're going to do the things that you're ashamed of. And that's why I'm on such a mission to heal shame, because I want people to be able to move into this place where they don't have to keep doing things that make them and other people unhappy, things that are dysfunctional and counterproductive and negative and destructive. And shame is usually at the core of that. It really perpetuates negative behavior.
Beautiful. So it's now I understand the reason why your website and your work is called the Shame-Free Zone. And I just want to take a moment to just really acknowledge you for sharing your personal story. We all have our personal stories, and you know, I mean, your life hasn't been easy, and you come across with so much grace and dignity now, and of course beauty. I really want to acknowledge that. I think what happens is we work through our stuff, and sometimes then we share our stories, and people just kind of assume that it's always easy. It still takes courage to share it and reshare it again and again, because sometimes just talking about it can re-traumatize people. But of course, you're not at that place anymore in your life, and I still want to appreciate you for your courage in sharing.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think it does anybody. If I'm just out trying to help other people, I'm kind of falling in this codependent pattern of trying to fix them, and I don't want to be in that place. What I want to do is walk my talk. Mm-hmm. And then if that's of service to somebody else, that's great. And yeah, I have gotten certified in these various different things, including anger management. But I got the certification after I got the healing. And I had to find somebody who could help me start changing my patterns. And there's a lot of belief systems that we have. And I do want to make sure that your viewers get a couple of first. Anger management is like several steps. It's like 8 steps. But just cover like the first 3. It's real important to get in touch with your body, to know what happens when you get angry, because a lot of times people are not tracking their anger, and then they do or say something they really regret, and they didn't realize they were so agitated. So to actually start tracking what's going on in your gut, what's going on in your heart, what's going on viscerally. Like a lot of times we start breathing differently when we're angry, and we might clench our jaw. There's clues along the way that you're getting ready to say or do something that you'll regret. And so if you could take a breath, and maybe several breaths, and really slow things down, that's not enough. It's the first step. Notice what's happening, you take a breath and sink into it. But the second thing is to really start extending empathy towards yourself. That's like going, oh, of course, I'll pick something like road rage, which is an issue of mine. I started teaching myself to realize that I wasn't angry at the other driver. I was terrified of dying. That was the truth. because it's dangerous out there, and somebody had done something stupid and put my life at risk. And so rather than admit that, I was attached to feeling powerful and strong and above the fear. And to be above the fear was to go to my anger. So if I didn't want to take that secondary emotion, anger is not always a secondary emotion, but sometimes it is, I had to get in touch with the fear. And getting in touch with the fear is a really humbling place to be. You realize that you're very vulnerable, and this is what a lot of us are trying to avoid. We're seriously trying to avoid this. And when we get in arguments with each other, we're trying to jockey to control the relationship and the interaction, because if we can do that, then we're hoping we won't lose the love or the connection. And then our needs will get met. So again, that fear oftentimes perpetuates our anger and our rage. So empathy becomes a way to reach to yourself. Empathy is a great antidote to shame as well. So instead of feeling ashamed of your feelings, you start empathizing with yourself and really changing the voices in your head, so that it's, not everybody out there is trying to get you, and you're not a bad person. And when you do that, sometimes, I'm at a place now where this happens a lot, I'm actually able to extend empathy to the other person. And to me, that's just miraculous. And it's so healing, and it's so heart expanding to be able to do that.
Great. So thank you so much for sharing with us your 3 techniques of 8 on how to start working through negative emotions. The first one is track your anger. The second is to sink into it. And the third is to extend empathy towards yourself. So we start to talk about releasing of negative emotions. How about the letting in of pleasure into your life?
Yeah. Actually, Martha, I have an exercise for your viewers that combines both. And it's a little edgy, but I stumbled across this on my own, and was fascinated with how powerful it is. So it's a masturbation ritual. Okay. So basically, I always try to remind my clients that masturbation starts in the womb. Okay, that means you start masturbating before you're born. And if that's the case, which we now have ultrasounds that seem to prove that, then there's a way in which masturbation doesn't have to be about pornography. It doesn't have to be about romance. It doesn't have to be about anything except your connection to self. And if you feel it's true for you, maybe your connection to the divine. But getting to this place where you're really fully connected to yourself is not an easy thing to do. I think most of us are kind of struggling with that. And I found that this ritual is really helpful. It involves arousing all the senses. So you want your sense of smell, for instance. And I prefer incense. Some people like scented candles. Some people maybe would do aromatherapy. Sense of sight. If it doesn't involve erotic material or fantasizing about a lover, I would like to see people that maybe eroticize themselves visually. So sometimes I'll encourage women to get in front of a mirror naked and dance for themselves. And that becomes the other modality, which is movement. To dance, to move, maybe to sing. Something that really starts to free you up so that you're not so self-conscious. And touch, obviously, we're going to get to touch when we start pleasuring ourselves. But before that, you might want to surround yourself with sheets and blankets and pillows that fulfill your idea of pleasure. Some people that might be feathers. For some people, that might be something that's really plush. For other people, might like something that's really silky. You have to know what works for you on that. Okay. Well, It could be the taste of your own genitals if you touch them and put your hand into your mouth. For some people, that might be hard to do, and if they didn't feel drawn to that, they could do like maybe have a little bit of chocolate-covered strawberries or something on hand, something to really go into the taste of eroticism.
Yeah.
And then orally, you know, what we're talking about, our ears, our sense of sound, music. But again, I caution my clients not to go into music that they associate pair bonding with or a romantic idealization with, because I'm trying to get them to an expanded state of connection with themselves and with, hopefully, the universe. So in that case, I would recommend some kind of spiritual music. I'm not talking about religious music. Maybe metaphysical music or mantra music or Native American flute music, but something that starts freeing you up to dream and to think big and to really open your heart. So now you've set the stage. You've got the smells and the tastes and the sights and the textures and the sounds, and you're getting really drawn into this. Most people, unfortunately, are going to rush to their genitals when they start thinking about masturbation. And regardless of that person's gender, I ask them, please don't touch your genitals at first. Start arousing your earlobes, your neck, the insides of your thighs. Maybe massage your own hands and feet. And just sigh into that, breathe into that, relax into that. And then, you know, the whole idea is you're slowly making love to yourself. So, you know, you would maybe play with your own lips, your nipples, and eventually you get down to your genitals. But when you touch your genitals, you don't want to treat them like they're some kind of a machine you're trying to get it to perform. Too often people are like trying to figure out exactly how does this thing work and how do I get it over with? You know, they want to hurry up and get to the orgasm. So it would be more about relaxing into the sensations and the feelings, and most importantly, the emotions. Okay. So here's the part that becomes both pleasurable and an emotional release technique. So when I first started doing this, I was using it kind of as a prescription for sex magic. I thought, well, if I visualize the things I want to pull into my life, at the moment of orgasm, our brain is so porous and our hearts are so expanded that whatever I was trying to affirm would go in. I would buy it more, and I would affirm it more, and it would have a bigger, more enhanced possibility of becoming true. But that was true. I imagined all kinds of things, a best-selling book, speaking in front of 10,000 people, whatever my dream was, flying over the Congo to meet the bonobos. Okay, so I have some quirky dreams. But whatever your dreams are, you would use those at the moment of orgasm to really step into it. Maybe you've always wanted to perform on stage or something. Maybe you want to paint. Maybe you want to learn how to sing. You just really allow yourself to imagine that, to step into it fully. There's one other element to this. One day I was trying to move towards this expansive, positive thing. And I was grieving a death. I had suffered a death in the family, and I couldn't stop crying about it. I felt like I was going to grieve this forever. And what I found was that as I was starting to pleasure myself, I couldn't stop thinking about my grief. And rather than make that taboo, rather than say, okay, well, let's put the grief aside and just focus on eroticism right now, I let it do its thing. And I ended up having an orgasm and crying at the very same time. And I cried so deeply, so fully, and I didn't have to do it again.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that sharing. I think that really made it really clear how you can have the same practice be one of letting go and of pleasure at the same time. So I think your interview really completed the whole clean and clear, because yours is the last interview. And also as a sexologist, I have to admit that of all the techniques, none of them was around leisure. I mean, in terms of masturbation, you know. So that's so important to bring that home back to my passion, my roots, and do better than yourself. So I want to make a little shout out about your free gift for everybody who's participating in Clean and Clear.
Yeah.
So Veronica, as you now start to learn more about her and also feel a little bit more connected with her, really hope that you also look at her coaching services. But anyway, her free gift is love your sexy, sacred relationship with these real life solutions for real relationships. She's offering an ebook, and the link is bit.ly/love your sexy, sacred relationship. And of course, the link will be made available to all of you. And I really would like to encourage you to take the time to read the ebook if you feel connected with her and with the interview, especially now you know the person behind the book. So do download that.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your sharing. It's you really brought us places where I didn't think was possible. And yeah, so thank you very much. It really is perfect.
Thank you. You are such a delight. Thank you.
Thank you. So